Prior to finding his identity, Bascome had to overcome major challenges in his social life, challenges that sent him down the wrong path. For starters, he found himself at a disadvantage after both of his parents died when he was just a young boy. The void created by this devastating loss took a heavy toll on Bascome, as one might expect, and over a period of time he developed insecurities. To suppress these insecurities, a teenage Bascome gravitated towards the streets and began engaging in counterproductive activities. Throughout this tumultuous period, Bascome was often involved in fights, and he actually began learning how to box for the sole purpose of self-defense. Inevitably, Bascome's unruly behavior spilled over into the classroom at the education center, where the first of several interventions occurred.
For whatever reason, he would disrupt the class, argue with someone. It looks like an altercation will start, so when you get between it, Nikki would just immediately go out the gate. He didn't stay around for consequences. When he came back, if he was given a consequence, then of course he'll leave before 10:30. So he was quite difficult, and it was no real talking to him because you've had so many children to deal with. So when you did find the time, of course Nikki was out of school, and it resulted in going searching for this young man. Let me see where he lives. Let me see what's up with him. What's going on with that little boy? You know, and when I did find him, he was living with a grandmother, a quite elderly lady. And it was kind of weird when I went into the house because I asked if Nikki was at home, and she says, I don't know. I haven't seen Nikki, you know, and then she started complaining about how he behaves, what time he comes in, he leaves the house, he doesn't ask where he's going, you know, he doesn't say where he's going or anything like that. So I saw that there were problems in the home as well. Usually if they come to school, I always believe that is something else underlying somewhere else.
I don't know, I was just lost, man. I was lost, you know, straight up, I was lost. You know what I mean, I just looking for love, like.
Determined to get to the root of Bascome's behavior, Stowe launched her own investigation.
And like a detective, trying to find out what was going on. I talked to quite a few people that knew of him. I realized I knew his mom and dad. I knew the situation with them. I was like, oh, okay. And then I started to ask some questions accordingly. And when he realized that I did know his mom and dad and I can tell him favorable things about them, then he seemed to, you know, have an ear to me. Couldn't talk to him long though, because he had something to do. Always something negative on the street, meet up with his boys or whatever the case might be.
After educating her troubled student more about himself, gradually Bascome began to mellow out.
After talking with Nikki quite a bit about himself and him, when somebody knows something about you, you tend to just go down a notch or two. So I felt the more I find out, the more I share with him that I know about him, the more I think I could have this conversation with this boy. And then Nikki started to talk one day. He said, you know, I got to do this. Like, he's always out on the street. I have to do this. I got to take care of myself, you know, this type of thing.
During a visit to the school by a former politician and Bermuda Regiment commanding officer, Bascome was introduced to another individual who would help him to turn his life around.
It's probably the rudest child I've ever met in my life. I mean, it was, you know, he had issues. And I don't think that anybody really took the time to try and figure out what those issues were, because I don't ever believe that children are just rude to be rude. There usually is an underlying reason. He was a disruptive student, and I don't think many people knew at that time the underlying cause of that. And the underlying cause of it was that he lost both parents at an early age. And you know, he believed as a child really, that he was the only orphan on the planet and couldn't process those things. And I think it's, you know, a tremendous credit to Mrs. Worrell Stowe that she was able to figure out what that was and figure out a novel way of, you know, demonstrating to to him that, one, he wasn't the only orphan on the planet, two, that you still can achieve having, you know, overcome great obstacles, and three, that there are people in our village who are prepared to help just because, not looking for anything in return other than the fact that, you know, they want young people to achieve.
I mean, she helped me do a lot, like, you know what I mean, get on my feet.
Bascome's transgressions eventually caught up with him when he had a brush with the law. The experience had a profound influence on Bascome and, to some degree, was the catalyst that sparked a remarkable transformation in his life.
Nikki got in some trouble and he went to court. And Nikki never talked to anybody with respect that I saw in my interaction with him. So why would it be different with the judge? So when he went in and the judge said something to him, he told the judge where to go. And the judge in turn told him where to go. And it was co-ed for 2 weeks until you could show some respect. I mean, you don't talk to me like that type of thing. That 2 weeks down there at co-ed, that confinement to this bird who likes to be free was very, very harsh.
In the aftermath of that ordeal, Bascome had the opportunity to broaden his horizons during an educational school trip to Cuba, and he took full advantage of it.
When I went, it was just a beautiful experience, seeing how people live and understanding like that I'm not the only one that's been through hard times.
When we came back from Cuba, Nikki said, I'm getting my GED, but I need to focus on my education. And the staff at the educational center kept waiting for an explosion, kept waiting for him to walk out of school, and that didn't happen.
I always think that, you know, any exposure, particularly for young Bermudians, to get out of this country and go overseas. So it was an educational trip. And I think that he saw in a country that doesn't have, you know, the sort of material wealth that we use to monitor and measure success, that young people, not only were they happy, they were focused and committed to getting a better education and bettering themselves and making a difference in their own communities. And I think not only he, but I think every young person on that trip got from that, you know, you don't have to be, it's not anything special to be able to make a contribution in your country.
After learning of Bascome's new positive outlook on education and life in general, Birch devoted time to help mentor, support, and ensure that Bascome's life remained headed in the right direction.
I was very proud of him and very, you know, interested in encouraging him to be a positive influence.
It's helped me a lot as well with the boxing and life period, like, you know what I'm saying? And it's a great thing, like, you know what I'm saying, if I was looking for a job, he had my back, you know what I mean? So definitely, man. I just, you know, like I said, I'm thankful, grateful for these people in my life, like, you know what I'm saying? Anything I could do is just keep giving my all, you know what I mean, at what I do.
Having come to terms with the challenges that impeded his development, Bascome began to take boxing seriously. And the rest, as they say, is history.
When he started boxing, I was like, you sure? Because he's, you know, not a big guy. But the first time I saw him, I thought, yeah, he's sure, because he's as tough as nails. And so, you know, the experience has been one of a young person who, you know, I got to know and was able to see develop and grow into, you know, quite a mature, responsible young man.
I seen him fight so much on a negative term that it took me a long time to adjust to him becoming a boxer. I can't watch him fight because I fought him so hard in the beginning not to fight. We want success. I'm proud that he is successful now. I'm happy he's not on the street. I'm happy he's not doing a lot of the negative things that he was doing before, because he was young and he was deep in there. But he made a choice, you know, and he had help. The village helped.